Louis T. Welcome to my 2020 NFL Draft 101 series. We're talking wide receivers tonight. By far and away my favorite position to analyze. Never played it at a very high level, but was coached by a guy that made it to the pros and was the best coach I ever had in any sport. Big ups to my man Pete Allen, but Coach Pete Allen, it gave me a greater appreciation for the position. I analyze it, I study it. I'm a lot harder on this position than any other position on the football field because I know it better than most. And when I say most, not most people, but most of the other positions on the field. So I love this position. This was one of the reasons I fell in love with football, that and Barry Sanders. But the receiver position holds a special place in my heart. And this is one of those drafts that gets me really excited because there's a ton of talented players at the receiver position in this draft. You're going to see a bunch of them come off the board. You're probably going to see every bit of 20 to 25 receivers drafted in this year's draft. And I don't know what the average number is every single year, but I can tell you this much. You're going to see them come off the board early. You're going to see them come off the board often. And you're going to see a ton of teams grabbing guys throughout this draft. And I look forward to seeing how these guys fare at the next level. One thing I can say about college football is that a lot of these receivers don't see a ton of press coverage. The more film you watch, the less and less press you see. Now, you get to the elite upper echelon corners that have confidence in their abilities. Like a Derek Stingley, for instance. Man, is he good. Oh, my God. I don't like looking at minors, okay? You know, I'm vehemently against looking at minors, but man, oh, man, is he impressive. All right, there are a couple of guys that jump out at you where you say, look, I don't like looking at minors, but man, is that guy impressive. He's one of those guys that you look at and say, he could go to the league right now. All right, and he'd be a first round pick, a top 5 pick, most likely, with Derek Stingley Jr. right now, looking at his skill set and what he brings to the table. Jamar Chase is another one. Again, I don't like talking about minors, and I'm not going to allow them to railroad this program because we're talking about the upperclassmen and the guys that declared for this draft that are going to be selected in the 2020 NFL draft. And I'm looking forward to chopping it up with you guys and talking about these players and their value in this draft, where they're going to go, the sleepers, guys that could potentially make some noise early in their careers, guys that may take a little while to blossom, but nonetheless, value in the second, third, fourth round, maybe even in this draft. So looking forward to talking about these receivers and what they're going to be able to bring at the next level. So let's chop it up, talk wide receivers in the 2020 NFL draft. I do want to give you my list of 7, and you can see them at the top of the screen scrolling across, but I will run through them very quickly to give you just a quick snippet of where I stand with my receivers. When I make lists and I start feeling listy, I list things, and usually my lists are comprised of 7 items. Here are my top 7 wide receivers for the 2020 NFL Draft. Obviously, number 1 is Oklahoma wide receiver CeeDee Lamb. I think he separates himself from Jerry Judy in this draft simply by 2 things, actually. His hands, number 1. They're official. To me, the best set of hands in this particular draft. And then his ability to break tackles, run after the catch. Jerry Judy is also very outstanding at run after the catch, but it's the ability to break tackles that separates. And again, I don't know if that's Big 12 missed tackles, broken tackles, but it's broken tackles nonetheless. It's impressive, and CeeDee Lamb's my number 1 wide receiver in this year's draft. Right behind him is Jerry Judy out of Alabama. Very impressive wide receiver. Love what he brings to the table. Very, very crisp route runner, probably the best route runner in this entire draft class. Very, very sticky feet, man. Those things, they're sharp, and I just tell you, man, sweet feet from Jerry Judy and his ability to get in and out of breaks and to break dudes off. It's fun to watch him work when he gets into a groove as well. He's my number 2 wide receiver in this draft. Number 3 is his teammate. out of Alabama as well. And what a wide receiver core they had. You know, everyone talks about LSU's group, and for good reason. All right, those guys were ridiculously impressive in what they were able to accomplish. Marshall and Jamar Chase, and obviously Justin Jefferson going to be drafted in the first round of the 2020 NFL Draft. But the four guys at Alabama were utterly ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous. Devontae Smith, you got Henry Ruggs III, who I have as my number three receiver in this year's draft. Ridiculous. Obviously, Jerry Judy, who's my number 2 receiver in this draft, he was their lead dog. And then also they had Waddle as well. I mean, it was ridiculous what they put on the field in terms of talent at the receiver position. Henry Ruggs III is the closest thing I've seen to Tyreek Hill since Hill has entered the league. Everyone's looking for one of those types of guys. This is the closest I think I've seen to Tyreek Hill, a true wide receiver with speed. Not a guy that's a track guy trying to play wide receiver, which is what we see with guys like John Ross, for instance, but a guy that's actually really, really fast that is a receiver as well. I think Henry Ruggs is a guy that is extremely impressive. He's my number 3 wide receiver in this draft. Justin Jefferson, as I mentioned earlier, from the LSU group of receivers, this guy was just a machine at LSU. Over 110 grabs on the season, 111 to be exact for Justin Jefferson. Every big play, it seemed like, if it wasn't Jamar Chase, it was Justin Jefferson. In big spots, the Texas game, I think, announced his presence in 2019 as Joe Burrow as well. And big play after big play after big play for Justin Jefferson. We all remember the playoff game versus Oklahoma. A historic first half for him, 4 touchdown grabs in the first half of that ball game. Joe Burrow was on fire in that game, but Justin Jefferson was doing a lot of the heavy lifting. This guy is phenomenal. Did a lot of his damage in the slot. He's a bigger slot guy, but I think he can also take his work and do it outside as well. So there's some versatility with Justin Jefferson. He's my number 4 wide receiver. Checking in at number 5 is a guy that has, to me, high boom or bust probability, and so you got to take him with a grain of salt. Is Laviska Shenault Jr. I know there are a lot of people on the fence about this guy. Some people were turned off by his pro day. Some people were turned off by the 40 time he ran at the combine, and you couple the two together. He just had core muscle surgery, so take it for what it's worth. This is a guy that when you watch him, you see it. I've talked about him numerous times. I said he's Sammy Watkins at his best. At his worst, he's a guy that could come in the league, have all the raw gifts and tools, but never really amount to anything. We've seen a bunch of those guys come through the NFL, and he would just be another one in the long list and line of guys that have done that. But I don't see that happening for him. He's just got to stay healthy. That's probably the biggest thing that worries me about him is his health. But all the raw tools are there. He's big. He's physical. I think he's faster than what he timed in his pro day and at the combine. And when you watch him go up and get the football, he's very adequate at that as well. Physical after the catch. A guy that they handed it to out of the backfield. He did a ton of wildcat stuff. I think Laviska Shenault has everything necessary, all the ingredients to be a really good NFL wide receiver. He's my number 5 wide receiver to round out my top 5. Then you get to number 6, is a guy that is steadily rising. I wasn't a huge fan of his early in the process, but the more I watched, the more I became a fan of Denzel Mims out of Baylor. Big-bodied receiver, but also a guy that can run. He's got track speed. We saw that at the combine. You put all of those things together at 6'3", 207, running a sub 4.4, and then you put his hands in the mix. Now, every now and again you get concentration drops out of him, and then there's some fumbles in there as well. Didn't run a ton of NFL concepts in terms of routes, but that's Baylor. You know how they do. It's not as bad as it was under Art Briles, but they weren't running a ton of NFL concepts there with Matt Rule either. So this is a guy that is somewhat raw in that department, but when you look at the tools that he has, the raw skills and ability, it's hard to find a guy like him in this draft to match the size, the speed, the hands, and some of the catches he makes are off the charts. This is a guy that I've come to like. He's grown on me, and I really think he's going to be a guy that could light this league up if used correctly. Denzel Mims, my 6th receiver in this draft. And rounding out my top 7 is T. Higgins, the wide receiver out of Clemson. I think T. Higgins is an acquired taste. Some people love him, some people don't. I'm not in love with T. Higgins' game, although I will say there are some things with T. Higgins that I do like. I love his ability. First of all, I love his size. I think he's a guy that can run as well. I don't know if he's blazing fast, though. I don't think. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't think we have a legit 40 time on him. We may have one. We do 4.54, but he's 6'4", 216. He's got a big wingspan, 34-inch arm, so huge catch radius, a guy that can make some things happen after the catch. He's not explosive and dynamic, but yet he was able to get behind defenders. Now, it was the ACC, and the ACC is not a strong conference in football anymore like it used to be back in the glory days when Florida State was actually good and there were some other teams in there that could compete. It's Clemson, and then take 16 steps, and then it's the rest of the ACC right now. And so Miami's not as good as they once were and all of those things. So he made the rest of that conference look inferior as he was supposed to. I have my doubts about T. Higgins, but you can't teach 6'4", you can't teach 215, you can't teach 34-inch arms, you can't teach the speed that goes with that 6'4" frame at 4.54, 40. You say what you want. Nope, he's not 4.38 like Denzel Mims, but 4.54 on that frame with his ability. There's something to be had there with T. Higgins, and so he comes in at number 7 for me on my list of wide receivers. So let's get to the comment section, and what I'm going to do is break this down for you as I always do, and let you guys know how this works. So as always, with these live streams, 3 ways to get in contact with the show. We're going to open up the phone lines. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and do that right now. So phone lines officially open. There you go. But the number 1 way to contact the show is via Super Chat. All right, so you want to jump straight to the front of the line. You want to chop it up. You want to ask about a specific receiver or, certain draft picks, rounds, et cetera, et cetera. Best way to do it is through the Super Chat. That will get you your comment read and get you on the show immediately. Then there's the phone lines, numbers on the screen. Feel free to call in. All I ask is that you have a secure line. Your volume is up. Be concise and direct with what you want to ask. We're not doing the long 5 to 7 minute conversations. Other people want to get in. Other super chats and things of that nature want to be read. So again, have your question. Figure out what you want to say. And I don't want to have to be an ass about it, but I will cut you off tonight because, again, I want to be able to get to as many comments as possible on the show. And then also it's the chat discussion. Use the hashtag LouisTLive to have your comment read on the air. Make sure that you like this video. Subscribe to the Louis T Network if you have not done so already, as we're going to break everything down with this draft. In the coming weeks, we're going to break down every single position. We're going to have one of these. Next week, we're going to do tight ends, offensive and defensive line. So it's going to be a jam-packed show as well. Following week, we're going to do backers and edge rushers. And in the final week, right the day before the draft, we're going to do the secondary. So looking forward to breaking it down. We're going to do a mock draft live some point before the draft, probably the week of the draft. I want to try to get as close to the draft as possible and be as accurate as possible with these selections. So we'll do that live together. And then obviously we'll have the draft party here on the Louis T Network, as we always do. Looking forward to that with you guys as well. So I'll remind you about all those upcoming dates down the road, but make sure that you keep those in mind. But again, like the video, subscribe to the Louis T Network if you haven't already done so. Let's get to the comment section, shall we? And I think we have some super chats to get us started tonight, and we do, so we will do that first. Blackskin HTTR to get us started tonight. Thank you for the super chat, Blackskin HTTR, who writes, "What's good, Louis? Let's find a gem in the 3rd or 4th round. Plenty of those to be had in this draft." I want a bigger receiver. I've told you that already, a bigger guy. One of my favorite receivers in this draft Not a household name, but watching him, I really fell in love with his game. Wouldn't mind the Redskins selecting him, and he'll be around in the third, probably be around in the fourth round, more likely than not. Isaiah Hodgins out of Oklahoma State. He's got the second best hands in this draft behind CeeDee Lamb to me. His hands are outstanding. Some of the catches he makes are just ridiculous. He's 6'4", 210. He ran a 4.6, so he's not a blazer, but I don't care anything about that. His ability to go and get the football, I love that. Obviously, the guy that I really want is AGG. He's not going to be around, to me, in the third round. I think he's going to be long gone. Antonio Gandy-Golden is the guy that I really covet. I think he's going to be long gone by the time we get to the third round. So a guy more in our wheelhouse would be an Isaiah Hodgins out of Oregon State. Another guy that I think is a sleeper, not as big, obviously, but Van Jefferson is another guy that I really like out of Florida. Underutilized receiver. They didn't have the best quarterbacking situation throughout his time in Florida, but Van Jefferson is a guy that I really like a lot. And if you watch that game against LSU, that first possession of the third quarter, that second half possession, he goes to work on Derek Stingley. And not many guys do that, but he worked him over on that drive, capping it off with a beautiful slant for a touchdown. So there's something there with Van Jefferson. Not a tremendous athlete, but he's a guy that I think has some immense potential at the next level. So those are the kind of guys you're looking for that third round, and there are many more guys. Brian Edwards is another guy that's got a little bit of size out of South Carolina that'll be around there. I talked about the USC wide receiver Michael Pittman Jr. that I think will be around early third round. I think he'll be there. I don't think he'll be there in the fourth. As a matter of fact, I'll go out on a limb and say he will not be available in the fourth round. But I think he'll be there early third. I think he'll come off the board sometime in the third round. So it's another guy with a little bit of size that I think will be around in the third round or so. Thank you for the super chat, Blackskin HTTR. KT the Southern Gent 22. Thank you for the super chat, KT the Southern Gent, who writes, best small school prospects. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. I haven't focused in a ton on small school guys. I've watched one or two of them. I watched one receiver, Coulter, out of Rhode Island. He's solid. He's very raw. Very, very raw, but he's got some skills, man. He's got some tools. He's toolsy. Got some size, got some speed. He's a sub 4.5 guy, got a little bit of size on him, but he's very, very raw, and he played at Rhode Island, okay? But again, I'm not going to sit here and act like I've been watching a ton of tape on small school guys. There aren't a ton of small school guys here. Obviously, Antonio Gandy-Golden out of Liberty is a high-profile name, but he went to a smaller school. Liberty just became a D1 school in football, so that's a relatively new program in terms of them being on the D1 landscape, and they're trying to make a name for themselves, and guys like Antonio Gandy-Golden are helping them do that. But I've watched a bunch of receivers, didn't watch a ton of them from smaller schools, though. So sorry if that wasn't very helpful. But nonetheless, thank you for the super chat, KT the Southern Gent. JP, my man John Perez with the super chat. Thank you for the super chat, John. He writes, where do you think T. Higgins could end up? I think T. Higgins is going to either go late first, early second is my best guess. I have him pegged as a late first, early second round pick. And, there are going to be a ton of teams sitting right there for him. I think Indy with that Redskins pick is very interesting. You got Phillip Rivers. You don't have a first round pick now because you traded that away to the San Francisco 49ers. I still think you need another alpha out there at receiver. You still have, you drafted the Ohio State product last year, who's a blazer but couldn't stay healthy last year. That's something that you have to keep an eye on. Obviously, you still have T.Y. Hilton, another guy that seems to get nicked up every single year. You need another big-time wide receiver out in Indy, I believe. And I think T. Higgins is a guy that probably is sitting there with the second pick in the second round. And so my best guess is if he doesn't come off the board in the first round, which I think he is one of those fringe guys. It wouldn't shock me if he's the last receiver taken in the first round. But I think he ultimately ends up being the first receiver taken in the second round, and I think it ends up being the Indianapolis Colts. That's where I'm putting him. Obviously, there are a lot of different ways that this could go, but and look, we could see 6, 7 guys at the receiver position, and I told you he's my 7th. Well, all it takes is one, and he could be somebody's 4th or 5th option, and he could come off the board in the first round. But I see him, and there's going to be, I think once the top is popped on the receiver position, and I think that's going to happen. If I had to guess, in my best estimation, I think the top is going to be popped on the receiver position at 12 with the Raiders. It could happen as soon as, the Cardinals they just got nuked. They're not popping the top. That was a team that I thought was going to initially pop the top potentially. I always thought that they were going to go after a tackle, and now I feel even more confident that that's the direction they're probably going to go in. So I think the Raiders at 12 pops the top, and then I think you start to see these receivers come off the board rapidly. I think the 49ers right after them at 13 in that Colts pick, you could see a receiver come off the board there. I know a lot of people think, they traded away a big defensive lineman, so they're going to replenish. That could happen. I think that Kyle Shanahan wants an alpha out there at receiver. They don't currently have one. The closest they have is Deebo Samuel. I think he's the quintessential number 2. I think they're looking for a big-time number 1 to give Jimmy G that option to get the football to, and I think everybody else kind of falls in line. So you could see receivers really start to come off the board, and then I think the Eagles are going to take one. I think there's a chance that the Cowboys take one, even though I think they're going to be more looking defensive side of the football, maybe safety, but who knows? I mean, you could see a run on these guys. Boom, 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 boom. Vikings definitely need one. They got 2 first-round picks now. So, again, you're going to see them come off the board rapidly. I think you're going to see T. Higgins, though. Second pick of the second round to the Indianapolis Colts. I think you see T. Higgins come off the board there. Thank you for the super chat. William Lee, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate it, William Lee. Also got another super chat, this one from Barry Williams. Thank you for the super chat, Barry Williams. Barry writes, are there any late round receivers that could be used as a tight end? I'm pretty sure there are some guys that will ultimately convert, but initially in the NFL, you don't really find that out. Now, some teams have that in their mind. Okay, we look at this guy as a potential transition over from receiver to tight end, but generally, you allow a guy to come in and prove to you that he can't before you just determine that he can't. And so, look, you see certain guys like there was one receiver at the combine, and it was funny. It was funny. Oh man, let me see if I can look him up real quick. There was a receiver at the draft that Charles Davis said. He said the running joke on this guy is he's a tight end. He just doesn't know it yet. And I'm you know what? I don't have my notebook next to me. I should have already had that out. I had written him down. And I would have been able to just run it off to you, but I should be able to pull him up really quickly once I get to the wideouts at the combine, and I'll see if I can pull him up. It's probably not going to be as easy as I thought. I think it's Jajuan Jennings. Nope, Jajuan Jennings is the Tennessee wide receiver. That's not. Oh, it's Jajuan Johnson. That's the guy out of Oregon. Jajuan Johnson is a big, thick receiver that easily could, transition to tight end. And that's a guy that'll be around in the later rounds. I believe, 4th, 5th round or so. Maybe even in the 6th round, you may still be able to get a Jajuan Johnson. And again, it just all depends on what a team views him as. Some team may still look at him as a big body wide receiver, and he probably wants to play wide receiver. But most teams are probably viewing this guy as a perfect candidate to transition to tight end. So it just all depends on how you view the player and how receptive that player is to making the switch. Some guys are adamant that they're a receiver, like Chase Claypool, for instance. It's like, no, I'm not a tight end. And you remember, he had put on some extra weight, and he's like, look, that's just water weight gain. Like, I didn't put that on purposefully to show you guys I can play tight end. I didn't come here at 238 on purpose. I'm probably going to end up dropping, 8 or 10 pounds and getting down to 230, 228. But this is just pure water weight gain. I didn't do this purposefully. I'm a receiver, and then he goes out and runs a 4.42. So, it's beauty is in the eye of the beholder, essentially, is what I'm telling you. We'll see what happens with some of those positions back end of the draft and what they decide to do with some of these players. Anyhow, William Lee, thank you once again for the super chat. Greatly appreciated. William Lee, my man William writes, let's trade with Seattle, Trent Williams for DK Metcalf in the third. Yeah, right. We had a chance to select DK Metcalf, and I'm not going to sit here and act like I wanted him. I thought he was a raw mess last year, and I didn't think he was a guy worth spending a first-round pick on. I thought that he was worthy of a second-round pick, but I wasn't keen on spending a first-round pick on him, and look what he turned out to be. And honestly, he landed in the perfect spot for his skill set. Had he landed anywhere else, I don't think he turns in the rookie campaign that he did. So keep that in mind as well. I said it when he was drafted. He couldn't have landed in a better destination because that Russell Wilson off-schedule type of helter-skelter game plan that they do out there is unlike any other, and it's perfect for what DK Metcalf does. And he actually did some good things in the route department last year, and he's only going to get better. But again, that off-schedule, hey, you go deep and I'll chuck it type of thing that Russell Wilson does better than anybody else in the league, that fit DK Metcalf perfectly, and that's why you saw a really good start to his NFL career. So thank you for the super chat, William Lee. Got another super chat. This one from DMV Fan 123. Thank you for the super chat, DMV Fan 123. Says, will the Eagles trade up for Ruggs? Hope not. I hope not either. I said the one guy that I don't want in the division, more so than any other receiver, is Henry Ruggs III. I don't want to see this guy in the division at all. It's bad enough they still, and remember, the Eagles still have Deshaun Jackson. Now, he was banged up last year and he rarely played, but if he's healthy, we all know he can still run. Usually, guys that can run really fast, the last thing to go on those guys is their speed. All right, I'm pretty sure that, Randy Moss, if you gave him a couple of days to get the dust knocked off, probably can still run a sub 4.5 40. Darrell Green probably can, at the age of, 55 or whatever Darrell Green is right now, he probably can still run a sub 4.5. You know what I mean? Like, the last thing to go when you're a fast guy, a really fast guy, is usually your speed. Deshaun can still run. And so you add a Henry Ruggs III to the mix in Philadelphia, it just makes it, especially with Carson Wentz's ability to create off schedule. I just talked about how good DK Metcalf was in Seattle because of Russell Wilson. Think of what Henry Ruggs would be in Philadelphia with Carson Wentz's ability to escape the pocket and then launch it. I just don't want any parts of that. This guy, as I said, the closest thing I've seen to Tyreek Hill since Hill has entered the league, want no parts of him in the NFC East whatsoever. Go anywhere you like, just not to Dallas, Philadelphia, or New York with the Giants, and I'm perfectly fine with him doing his thing. But I don't know if the Eagles are going to even have to trade up to get their hands on him. We'll see how the draft falls, how this goes. Quarterbacks get pushed up, offensive tackles get pushed up, and then all of a sudden some guys fall back. I think more likely than not, Henry Ruggs is going to be gone by the time you get to the Eagles pick in the draft. So if they want him, they probably would have to move up. I don't know because the Eagles the last few years have made it a habit of trading up. At some point, you have to stop giving away draft capital, even though there are specific guys you may target and want. At some point, you got to stop giving up picks, and you got to hold on to your picks. And so maybe the Eagles are better served just sitting where they are, and whatever the best receiver is, if that's what they're in the market for in the first round, whatever the best guy on the board is at the time, because you really can't go wrong in this draft. Obviously, like I said, Laviska Shenault is a guy that has boom or bust properties, but there's a lot of guys in this draft that especially in the first round, you got to feel good about. If you take one, you feel really good. You're like, this isn't the Josh Doxson draft, where Laquan Treadwell, Josh Doxson, Will Fuller, and you're like, you're splitting hairs over guys that you're like, they're all one and the same, whatever, and only one of them turned out to be any good. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't that kind of draft. Any one of these receivers you take in the first round, most likely than not, is going to be a hell of a receiver. And hell, I'd even take it a step further. Just about anybody you take in the second round, with the exception of some of the smaller guys in the second round, I'm not too fond of those guys. I'm not a huge KJ Hamler guy. I know a lot of people love his speed, and he can run. All right, there's no doubt about that. But a lot of drops. He's so small. He gets banged around a lot. I'm not a huge KJ Hamler fan. And, the TCU wide receiver, let me give you his name real fast. He's another guy that he's good. I like him. He makes some spectacular catches, but then you get a lot of drops from him as well, too. So Jalen Trager, I'm not a huge fan of those guys necessarily, but there is talent there. There's no denying that. So we'll see what happens there. But anyhow, thank you for the super chat, DMV fan 123. Thank you for the super chat, Jack M. Greatly appreciate that. Thank you for the super chat, Jack M. Jack writes, Jack writes, Gross Matos for the Seahawks. It wouldn't shock me. He feels like a Seahawks type of pick. Now, we're not talking edge rushers, and outside backers on this particular show. This is a wide receiver show, but he seems Seahawkish to me. Kind of fits what they like to do, fits that Frank Clark type of mold, kind of raw physical gifts type of player that they like to select and develop. So, but that's not what we're talking about tonight. But he feels Seahawkish to me. I agree. Got another super chat. This one from Barrett Downing. My man BD, as always, blessing the program. Thank you for the super chat. BD, as always, Barrett writes, great show as always. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Barrett, for the support. Greatly appreciate that. Got another super chat. This one from Mr. Laughing My Head Off. Thank you for the super chat. No comment, just wanted to bless the program. Thank you for the super chat, Mr. Laughing My Head Off. Greatly appreciate it. So, and yes, I see a comment, even though you didn't direct it to me. Monte Rager is the father of Jalen Trager, so there are NFL bloodlines there. So, and I have that in my notes as well. So, again, there is talent there. No mistake in that, all right, with Jalen Trager. But, again, the drops are a concern for me. And there's some things that I'm not the biggest fan of with him, but there's definitely talent there, as I've mentioned with him earlier. So, that being said, no more super chats for the time being. So phone lines are open. I'll get to the comment section. Again, if you want to have your comment read, use the hashtag LouisTLive. If you want to jump straight to the front of the line, make sure you use the super chats. They are at your disposal. Also, the phone lines are open. So let's get to some comments. Now I'll go back to the top, start running off a few here while we have some time. KT the Southern Gent says, what are your thoughts on Lynn Bowden Jr.? To me, Lynn Bowden Jr., it's easy, low-hanging fruit, but I'm going to pick it because the similarities are too eerily similar. They're too close to one another. He reminds me so much of a fellow Kentucky quarterback turned wide receiver in Randall Cobb. This guy is so versatile. He was more of a running back when he played quarterback. He had over 1,400 yards rushing. Most of that was at the quarterback position, but he can run it. He's a slot guy. Obviously, he played a little bit of quarterback. I wouldn't recommend that, but then there's the gadget plays that could exist if you put this guy on your roster. A lot of things I like about him, but they're, again, another one of these guys that you can tell at one point he was a quarterback because you can see him kind of very, very hypersensitive to activity around him. He sees that safety or he sees a flash of color coming and the concentration leaves the ball and kind of goes to that defender and you see drops. And so that's a problem for me. But then there are times where you see him catch the football in traffic, no problem. So there's some inconsistencies there, but there's definitely talent with Lynn Bowden Jr. And he's a guy that I think someone's going to be enamored with the skill set. Love all of the different things that he brings to the table. And I think he's one of those guys you'll see come off in the mid-rounds, third, fourth round, somewhere in that mix. So it wouldn't shock me to see him come off the board as early as the third round, but I think he's more of a fourth round prospect in my assessment. Gregory Lightbody says, I don't think AGG will go as early as the second, so the Skins should have a chance in the third. I really think that someone's going to fall in love with his raw ability, his size, his ability to go up. I think he has probably the best 50-50 attributes in this draft. His ability to go pluck the football out of the air, to me, is second to none in this draft. He does it better than anybody else. He's got a big physical frame. I think teams are going to fall in love with that. And I think someone's going to pluck him in the second round. I hope you're right, and I hope he's there in the third round. He would be the perfect complement to Terry McLaurin across the field. But I just don't see him hanging around. But I would love it if AGG is available in the third round. Gregory Lightbody, got a call. Going to go ahead and take it. You're on live with your man, Louis T. Who am I speaking with?
It's me. It's your main man, Ree.
What's going on, Ree?
I don't know if you heard, Lou. We signed some sixth-round pick like a week or so back.
Okay. Who is this guy?
Some sixth-round pick. He's from Michigan, you know?
Oh, yeah, that guy.
He went 199th overall.
That guy, yeah. Thomas.
Yeah, I think you've heard of him.
Yeah, that guy, Thomas. Thomas
yeah.
Brady.
But I just wanted to call in, and there's still a part of me that can't believe it. It's unreal.
Yeah, I mean, look, man. This season's gonna be really fun. I'm fascinated by New England. I'm also fascinated by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I have contended, and I know you don't want to hear this, but I don't think that it's going to be all that you think it's going to be. Not at least in year one. Maybe year two, after the dust settles, smoke clears, everybody kind of is acclimated to Tom Brady and Tampa, and all of the hoopla and everything surrounding it kind of dies down, and it just gets back to football. I think you could definitely see this team potentially contend for something legitimate in his second year. But I think this first year, and that's if Brady hasn't fallen off completely by then. But I think he's going to come in there. I think there's going to be a target on Tampa Bay's back. I think the Falcons have improved. The Saints are still good. And I don't know what to make of Carolina yet, but I just think that division is going to be really tough. It's going to be fun to watch and see what happens. And you guys have a murderer's row schedule, too, if those teams are good like we think they're going to be.
Yeah, you're right. I do have a draft question, but first I want to ask, so what do you think was the driving force with Tom Brady in New England? You think that there was some sort of contention with Bill Belichick, or do you think he just said, I want to try something new?
Yeah, I've talked about it on my podcast, and I pretty much said that he wanted the Patriots to want him. He wanted more specifically, he wanted Bill Belichick to want him. He wanted them to acknowledge the fact that they needed him. And Belichick wanted to move on from him back in 2015. He wanted to go with Jimmy G. So Belichick really wanted to move on from him, 2 Super Bowls ago. And so now he's gotten the opportunity to, and so it was a mutual parting of ways. Brady would have preferred to stay in New England, but I don't think he felt like he was wanted there anymore, so he moved on.
I think that he has not liked playing for Bill Belichick for a while, but he tolerated him as long as he was still having fun. And then one day he just said, you know what? This isn't fun anymore. I'm going to go somewhere where it's warm weather. And you know how B.A. and Bill Belichick are polar opposites personality-wise.
Yeah, absolutely. You couldn't get more two guys on
Bill Belichick's like,
opposite
Bill
ends of the
Belichick, he's always like,
spectrum.
we're on the Cincinnati. And B.A.'s always like, cool, baby. Yeah, baby,
Yeah, that's B.A., man. That's my guy. But get to your draft question. What you got for me, Ree?
So let's say that we're at 14, and this probably won't happen, but it's just what if Henry Ruggs Jr. or Henry Ruggs III is sitting there? Mm-hmm. Imagine him in this offense. Would you take him if he was sitting there?
Absolutely. I mean, here's the thing. You got a ton of weapons out there already, and I'm a Scotty Miller fan. I don't know about you. I'm a Scotty Miller guy. So I think you got enough weapons out there, but if you added him to the mix that you already have with Mike Evans and Godwin and the two tight ends, OJ Howard and Cameron Brate, it just, man, that's overkill. But man, he'd be in heaven at that point, honestly. And I'll tell you this much:
I don't think you could cover us.
I don't think Brady can get it to him deep though, consistently. Like that's the one area I think Brady is struggling in more so than any is the deep ball. He's throwing balloon balls at this point. Which is fine for, Mike Evans because he can go up and get it. But Ruggs, not necessarily his strong suit. And he can climb the ladder, but that's not what you're looking for from a 5'11" wide receiver. You'd much rather him just run by guys and Brady get it out there to him. And if Brady doesn't throw it with timing and anticipation to Ruggs, he's not going to get it to him.
Well, you know that he's going to be able to say, I can just throw it up to Mike Evans sometimes, and he'll come down with it.
Yeah, that's what I said. And I think that's more along the lines of what you're looking for when you go deep is, hey, I'm going to just chuck it up and have Mike Evans make a play. Whereas Henry Ruggs is a guy, you want to lead him. You want to allow him to run under the football, and that's not where Brady is at this point in his career. So, not to say that...
All right, Lou.
Yep.
I'll let you get back to your show. I just wanted to call and check in.
Hey, man. Appreciate it, Ree. Congratulations, too, man.
All right, man. Thanks.
All right. All right, so we get back to the comment section. And we do have a super chat, so I'll read that. It's from my man Martin Matthews. Thank you for the super chat, Double M. Greatly appreciated, Martin. Martin writes, hey, Louie, I like Quez Watkins better than Shenault. 6'2", 4'3". How do you feel about Watkins? Yeah, he's solid. I much prefer Shenault. Quez Watkins, if I'm not mistaken, out of Southern Miss. He again, size, height, weight, speed specimen. Has some ability. I don't think he's look, first of all, I don't think Laviska Shenault is a great route runner at all. I think that's one of his biggest faults right now. I'm not blown away by Quez Watkins' ability to run routes either. So there's that. But when you talk about size, you talk about speed, he's a much faster receiver if we're comparing him to Shenault. But I think Shenault is way more physical, and I think that's what you're looking for in your receiver. If you're talking about Shenault, I think he plays faster than the time that he was timed at. I think he was banged up, during these off-season workouts, and he just had the core muscle surgery, as I mentioned. I think this is a guy that has had some injury concerns, had multiple surgeries prior to the 2019 season, one on his toe, and what was the other one? The other one was on his labrum. So, this is a guy that he's so physical, it's almost to his detriment. But, Quez Watkins is interesting, but I don't think he's even in the stratosphere of a Laviska Shenault, if you ask me. And Laviska Shenault won't hear his name any later than the second, whereas Quez Watkins probably won't hear his name sometime until the fourth, probably the fifth round, somewhere in that general vicinity. But all it takes is one, you know what I mean? And someone could feel just the way that you do about Quez Watkins, and all of a sudden he is, a third round pick. So we'll see what happens. But thank you for the super chat, Martin Matthews. Let's see. Got a call. Going to go ahead and take it. Oh, missed that call. You guys continue to call in. You guys continue having the super chats, and you guys continue with the comments, and we'll get to as many of them as possible. Let's see. Captain Spartan 04 says, it's looking like Michael Pittman Jr. will be a Steeler. Checks all the boxes and what we look for. We love NFL bloodlines too. Tomlin coached and Ike Hilliard played with his dad. I think he is one of those guys I like to term as Pam Mom. Proficient at many, master of none. He does everything well, nothing great. He's not a speed demon, but he's got great size, great physical gifts in terms of 6'3" or 6'4", 223, but not overly quick, not overly fast, good hands, really solid route runner. I think he could improve on that a little bit though. But again, nothing great, but everything really quality. So Sounds like a Pittsburgh Steeler to me. Got a call. Going to go ahead and take it. You're on live with your man, Louis T. Who am I speaking with? Missed that one as well. Next comment is from KT the Southern Gent. Who is your Alvin Kamara value pick of this position group? I'll give you a name. I think I mentioned his name already, but I'll mention it again because I was really, really impressed with him, and that's Van Jefferson. You know what, too? Another guy that I haven't mentioned tonight, but I think he bears mentioning is Brandon Ayuk is another guy, a really talented, multifaceted wide receiver, gives you some return ability. I've got him projected as a day 2 second round pick right now. He reminds me a ton of Robert Woods coming out of USC. That's my comp for him. This is a guy with a ton of quickness. I think he can separate at the next level. There are some concentration drops. I think he needs to be a better route runner. I think he needs to be stronger at the line of scrimmage as well and at the point of catch. I see a lot of times when the ball's in the air and he's jostling for position trying to go get it, he doesn't do a good enough job of fighting off that defender because, there's a lot of hand fighting and tugging, jostling when the ball's in the air, and you got to do a good enough job of fighting off that defender and going and get the football. I think he struggles with that a little bit, but he does a lot of things really well. And I think he actually plays faster than the time 4.5 speed that we saw at the Combine. So that's a name that is, to me, some good value. And I don't think a lot of people are talking about him. At one point, he was a guy that was ascending into the first round. I think that's cooled off a bit. Now I think you can get him in the middle to the late portion of the second. Maybe even the third. I think he's going to go in the second round. But Van Jefferson is a guy that I was going to mention initially. I really like Van Jefferson a lot. Van Chi, all right, and again, NFL bloodlines. His dad was a really good NFL wide receiver, Sean Jefferson, if you remember him. A lot of good years with the Patriots and the Falcons, if I recollect correctly. I remember those are the years I remember specifically. But he was a really good receiver for a long time, and so he learned from his dad, obviously. And his dad is, if I'm not mistaken, is a coach in the league. He didn't run a 40, so that's the one thing that you're kind of waiting on. But he's 6'1", 200 pounds. Like I said, I've got him, and I wrote down in my notes, I think he's a 4.44 to 4.49 guy. So I'm not quite sure, but that's the range that I have him in. I'd be shocked if he ran anything faster than that. I wouldn't be that surprised if he ran like a 4.52, but anything less than that, I'd be surprised because I saw a guy that could run on tape. Not a lot of production at Florida, but some of that, not his fault. The quarterback situation at Florida has been a mess for years, so I'm not going to put a lot of that in his lap. This is the comp that I have for him right now, and this is why I think he could be really good. I look at him and I see Chris Godwin. I see a lot of Chris Godwin in Van Jefferson, and so to me, this is a guy that could be a steal for someone, could be that value pick in this draft, and you can probably get a Van Jefferson, in the 4th round, potentially he could still be around. I've got him pegged as a 3rd round to 4th round guy. So late day 2, early day 3. And if you get him in the 4th round, that could potentially be a steal for someone. So thank you for that comment, KT the Southern Gent. I got a super chat. So I'm going to go down and grab that one quickly. Actually, I thought I had another one. I got a super chat here from DMV Fan 123. Thank you for the super chat. Double up. From my man DMV Fan 123, the first of the night to double up. He says, "Do you think receiver will be BPA at 66?" Possibly. It could be best player available at that point. Look, I've always said the draft is all about value. All right, that's essentially what teams are looking to get out of the draft. And in the 3rd round, and that's early 3rd round too. 66 is early 3rd round. At that point, and if I'm not mistaken, that's the Redskins' 3rd round selection, the 2nd pick of the 3rd round. That's early 3rd round, and so you're definitely BPA at that point. You're still looking for the best player available. Now, if that best player available happens to meet a need, so be it. But at 66, it's not out of the realm of possibility that you're looking for BPA at that point. And if there is, and I've given you this example, so I don't really need to rehash this, so I won't go into this in depth because I've done it multiple times, so you've heard me say this before, but if you got a first round grade on a guy, or you got an early second round grade, and you get to the top of the third round and he's still sitting there, it's hard for you to pass that guy up. You know what I mean? So it'll be interesting to see what teams decide to do as you get into the third round. But 66 to me is still BPA territory, if you ask me. But, you know, some teams might be shopping for a need at that point. So we'll see what happens. But got another super chat. This one from Mr. Laughing My Head Off. Double up. For Mr. Laughing My Head Off. Thank you for the super chat once again. Mr. Laughing My Head Off, who writes, also a big fan of Van Jefferson. Reminds me of Ryan Grant on steroids. He says, do you think he could play opposite Terry McLaurin? Great route running. Absolutely. I think he would be. To me, Van Jefferson is nothing more than a number 2 in this league, which is what Chris Godwin is, a number 2. A great number 2 at that is Godwin right now. But I think that's what Van Jefferson could be, a really good number 2, a nice Robin to someone's Batman. Again, I'm looking for some size, but if the Redskins decided on Van Jefferson and say, look, this guy's got tremendous upside. We love what this guy brings to the table. Played in the SEC against tough competition. We saw him against LSU. I told you the best corner in college football in 2019 was Derek Stingley Jr., and it's not even close. And he went to work on him in segments of that game. So he wasn't afraid of, and again, I don't want to use the word afraid because you're an upperclassman. This guy's a freshman. You should feel confident that you can do him. But Derek Stingley was a different breed. He's a different breed. And to see him do what he did in that game, and some of the other games too, Van Jefferson for me is a guy that I like a lot, and I really think has a chance to be a really good receiver in this league. So thank you for that super chat. Mr. Laughing My Head Off. Gonna get back to some of the comments and also check the phone lines. Let's see where we were. JCamman99 says, do you think the Bills still need to get a receiver, or are we okay with Diggs, Beasley, and Brown? I love that trio of receivers. The only thing I think you're missing is some size. You guys did have one bigger receiver, the ex-Auburn product, that was making some plays in that playoff game before he got hurt. So he does offer you a little bit of size, but the only thing with that group of receivers that you just threw out there, they're all diminutive receivers. All of them are, I think, 6 feet or shorter. You know, obviously Beasley and Brown are both south of 6 feet, and I think Diggs is right around 6 feet. So you're missing size there. And, you know, Josh Allen can be a little erratic with throws, and it'd be nice to have a big guy that can climb the ladder and go get the football, but outside of that, I love that trio. And remember how good Beasley and Brown were for you last year. So if you add Diggs to the mix, now all of a sudden, everyone kind of fits into their proper slots because John Brown to me is a number 2 in this league and Beasley is a third option. Now you have a legit number 1. I don't think you necessarily need to go fishing for a receiver early, but that doesn't rule you out from getting a receiver, say, in the mid-rounds. I think there'll still be great value there. And if I'm Buffalo, I'm still looking for some receiver help, and I'm looking to add a guy maybe in the 4th or 5th round. So I don't think you're out of the receiver market per se, but I don't think you're going to be looking for a receiver relatively early in this draft after going and trading for Stephon Diggs. See if we got any more super chats. We got another super chat, so I'm going to take that right now. And this super chat is from Leo Suarez. Thank you for the super chat, Leo Suarez. Greatly appreciated. My man Leo writes, what are your thoughts on the new playoff format? Look, I'm a purist. I wasn't looking for change. If it wasn't broke, it didn't need to be fixed. But the NFL, this is a money grab. They're looking for more bread. The only way that they can get that is through more games, more TV revenue. And so you add another playoff game. That's all this is about. I don't think you need to water down the playoffs by adding 2 more teams that nobody really cared to see in the postseason in the first place. It's rare that a 6 seed wins the Super Bowl. I think it's going to be even more rare that a 7 seed gets in and does any damage. So I'm not looking forward to it necessarily, but I'm cool with an extra game on Wild Card Weekend. Who's turning down more football? Free football, okay? Who's turning that down? I'm not. I'll take the 3rd game. I told you, I was fine with my 4:30 start on Saturday. I didn't need my start on Saturday to be at 1 o'clock. I had things that I wanted to do. What if I wanted to wash my car? All right. What if I wanted to make a couple of runs to the store and run some errands? I can't do that now. I got to get up early if I want to do that. So I was cool with the way things were. But that being said, extra team in each conference, only one bye in each conference. So I think it makes it a little bit more competitive down the stretch of the season, but at the end of the day, I was fine with it the way it was. So anyway, thanks for the super chat. So we get back to the comment section, and the next comment is from, let's see, Andrew Kim says, if the Ravens don't take a receiver in round 1 or 2, I want them to snag Bryan Edwards rounds 3 and 4. And he'll be there. Bryan Edwards, and that's where I have him pegged, coming off the board somewhere in that 3rd to 4th round range. I think I have him more as a 4th round receiver. I have Bryan Edwards as my number, I think he's like my 17th receiver in this draft, 18th receiver in this draft. And I've got him late day 2, which is the 3rd round, early day 3, which is the 4th round. So I've got him as my 18th receiver in this draft. And he'd be, and you know what? He looks the part of a Baltimore Raven. He really does. I look at him and he does, and again, much like I talked about with Michael Pittman Jr., he does everything well, nothing great. And I think he fits in perfectly with the Ravens. Hard, blue-collar mentality. His run after the catch is physical. They give him the football on jet sweeps and things like that. And he's physical with the ball in his hands. To me, he fits the personality of the Baltimore Ravens. So I think that would be a great match. And it wouldn't shock me if he ended up there as well. Next comment. We got a phone call. Going to take it. You're on live with your man, Louis T. Who am I speaking with?
What's up, Blue? It's your man, JP, calling in. What's going on, man?
JP? What's going on, JP?
Doing well. So I got a couple of things about this legit loaded wide receiver class. Where do you think Henry Ruggs is most likely to get drafted? I had him projected to maybe Denver at 15, maybe the Jets at 11, and I'm gonna just throw a random one in there, like the Eagles somehow trade up from 21.
All of those are very possible scenarios. The Jets, if they were to take a receiver that early, it probably wouldn't be Ruggs, although speed sometimes is so tantalizing. We saw it with John Ross when he came out and surprised a lot of people by going in the top 10 to the Bengals. Sometimes people are blinded by speed. And I don't think that would be the case this time if they took Ruggs and he was the first receiver, because I really think that we could see a top 10, a receiverless top 10. That wouldn't shock me. With all the talent defensively, with all the quarterbacks, and probably 2 or 3 tackles potentially coming off the board. Like I said, everybody can't be top 10. We talk about, this guy's top 10, this guy's top 10. Well, everybody can't be top 10 because there are going to be 3 quarterbacks going in the top 10. And if that's the case, then you're not going to get, and then you when you start fitting in the pieces of the puzzle, if 3 quarterbacks are going in the top 10, and then you're going to get Chase Young in the top 10, and then you're going to get Jeff Okudah in the top 10, and then you're going to get Isaiah Simmons in the top 10. Well, I just told you that's 6 picks in the top 10 right there. Not to mention one of those defensive linemen probably going to come off the board in Javon Kinlaw or Brown. And so that's 7 right there. If not both of those guys, I don't think both of them come off the board in the top 10, but one of them probably will. And I haven't touched the tackles, and we know at least 1, if not 2 of those guys are going in the top 10. So again, I don't think you're going to see a receiver go in the top 10. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw one of those receivers come off the board 8, 9, 10, somewhere in there, but I wouldn't rule out Jacksonville as a landing spot for a receiver. I think they need a legit number 1. Even though I've liked what I've seen out of the LSU receiver that they drafted a couple of years ago, he's starting to come into his own. Still, I think they could use another guy there, but I don't know if that's the direction they decide to go in. And so I think if the Jets take a receiver, it's going to be CeeDee Lamb or it's going to be Jerry Judy, but it wouldn't shock me if they went Henry Ruggs. I think it's more along the lines of Denver, as you mentioned, at 15, or I think the Cowboys, interestingly enough, I don't know if they would turn down an opportunity to take a Henry Ruggs because really right now they don't have anyone opposite of Amari Cooper that scares you. I mean, look, I take that back because I do like what Michael Gallup has turned into as a guy, as a number 2. But they don't have they currently don't have a number 3. They don't have a slot. And Ruggs would fit that perfectly. And if you really think that you're building something there, he could go to Dallas. You know what I mean? I could see him ending up in Dallas. Eagles, I know they would love to get their hands on Henry Ruggs. I just don't know if they're in a position to trade up again. They trade up every year, and at some point you got to stop trading up and just take guys where you are. And so it costs a lot to trade up in the first round. I don't know if they are willing to do that or not.
Yeah, it would. It would cost a lot. I'm guessing it would probably include a first-round pick in the deal. I think Henry Ruggs is more likely to go to Denver at 15. Man, watching I know you're a Drew Lock guy, so I know you would love watching him catch passes from Drew Lock.
And nobody throws a better deep ball than my man Drew.
Defense.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. That should really make Denver Broncos fans happy.
Yeah, absolutely.
When I looked at your receiver rankings, I'm surprised. I'm not going to criticize you because I know you're a genius.
I mean, that's okay, man. That's what we're here to do. Absolutely. Fire away.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised that Judy wasn't your number 1. I actually had him as my number 1 over CD Lamb.
Yeah.
Because this guy's so good.
He is. But you know what? There were some things that rubbed me the wrong way. So the LSU game stood out to me. There were some big drops in that game. 2 big ones in that game. Now, he ultimately redeemed himself on the very next play after he dropped a slant in the end zone that forced a 4th down, and then he makes the big catch on 4th down in the end zone. So he redeemed himself there, but the play before that, he drops a slant, and he dropped a deep ball earlier in the 3rd quarter. And then when you watch him, and I watched him in some other games, and their concentration drops. You know, I watched him in the Michigan Bowl game, and he destroyed Michigan. But there was a drop on a comeback where you're just like, dude, catch the football. You know, no, matter of fact, that was against Auburn, where a simple comeback, and they ended up losing that game. And he would have got the first down, but he drops the football. And it's just like, dude, catch the ball. So there's some concentration drops with him that, and when I look at the elite receivers, and I told you I'm harsh on receivers. When I look at the elite receivers in the game, they don't drop the football. Michael Thomas does not drop the football. DeAndre Hopkins does not drop the football. All right? These guys, Antonio Brown, when he was in the league and at his peak, doesn't drop the football. He didn't drop the ball. These guys that are elite in the league, they don't drop the football. Devontae Adams doesn't drop the football. So when you and he's not even, when you think of elite, he's not even elite. You know, I was looking at Devontae Adams' stats. He doesn't even have multiple 1,000-yard seasons. Now, he's come dangerously close twice at 997, but he's only got 1,000-yard season under his belt. That's actually hard to believe, but then when you think about all the injuries Aaron Rodgers has had, it's not that hard to believe. But anyway, I digress. Those drops just bother me, that's all. And CD Lamb doesn't drop the ball, period. End of discussion. So.
Yeah, you know what? I think, again, there's a place for Jerry Judy in this league. Again, he's my number 1.
Absolutely.
But yes, I do agree that he has struggles with drops. I did watch that LSU Alabama game. That was probably one of my favorite games because we finally beat Alabama after a decade-long stretch.
Right.
But he was. That Alabama receiving corps was getting mauled by our secondary, and they struggled early, and then they started to give us a little bit of a dogfight at the end. So, there's some stuff that makes you want to pull your hair out with Jerry Judy, but I have him mocked going to the Jets. CeeDee Lamb, I like CeeDee Lamb a lot. He was one of Kyler Murray's teammates at Oklahoma, and he also was catching passes from Jalen Hurts. Where do you think CeeDee Lamb is going to go? Because there's definitely a place for him in this league. And how fast do you think he is?
I think the Raiders are getting a receiver. So
yeah.
whoever, if the Jets pop the top, then whoever they don't take, the Raiders will take. If no one is taking a receiver, the Raiders are popping the top at 12. So I think, and that's what I have right now, is I've got the Raiders popping the top. Now, with all the moves the Jets have made to solidify their offensive line, I still think they don't have a credible left tackle, but they may roll with George Fant, who they signed from Seattle. And if they're cool with that and they feel good about him, rolling him out as their left tackle, or they say to themselves, we can find a left tackle in the second round, and we got 2 third-round picks. If we need to package something up, maybe we'll do that. But we can't pass on this kind of talent at receiver, and they take one of those guys, and they allow Robbie Anderson to walk, so they don't have a number one out there. So be it. Whomever doesn't get taken number one, I think that's who you see the Raiders take. So if the Jets prefer Jerry Judy, then CeeDee Lamb is a Raider. If the Jets prefer CeeDee Lamb, then Jerry Judy's an Oakland Raider. That's how I see that going. And after that, I think you'll see the rest of those dominoes kind of fall. Henry Ruggs, Justin Jefferson, all of those guys will start coming off the board in whatever flavor that particular team likes.
Yeah, I agree. I also wouldn't be shocked if Judy is picked by the Niners at 13. I've heard there were some reports that they were considering flirting around with him at 13 after they got that pick from the Colts. Don't sleep on my guy Tony Jefferson from LSU. That kid can play some ball. That kid's going to be a first-round pick.
Come on, Justin Jefferson?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. He's my number 4 receiver, so I'm not sleeping on him. So.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Hey, man, appreciate you, JP, man. Take care.
All right, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
No doubt. All right, let's get back to the comment section. All right. Make sure I didn't pass up on any super chats. And I do see one, so I'll knock that out. Then we'll get back to the comment section or the phone lines. Barry Williams, thank you for the super chat. Double up. From Barry Williams, thank you for the super chat and doubling up. My man Barry writes, what's your best guess on the receivers that will be there for the Redskins? Be there when? Third round? Obviously, I've given you a bunch of names, but I can give you all the guys that I think will be available come the Redskins pick at 66. I think that, and my man, Gregory Lightbody says that he thinks AGG will be there, Antonio Gandy Golden. I don't. Chase Claypool could be there. I think he's going to go in the second round. We'll see. I think that starting with Van Jefferson, of all the guys that I have, I think Van Jefferson's my 12th rated wide receiver in this draft. I think starting with him is when you start to get into the guys that should be there in the third round. Van Jefferson, Michael Pittman Jr., Tyler Johnson is a guy that early in the process, oh my God, Minnesota wide receiver Tyler Johnson, people have really soured on him. He's, to me, a mid to late day 2 pick, so I've got him as a third round pick all day long. I think he didn't get out of the third round, and so he's another guy that will be around. I wouldn't mind him being a Washington Redskin either. I told you, I probably love Isaiah Hodgins more so than most people do. He'll be around. KJ Hamler. Here's a name that no one's brought up. I thought someone would bring him up because he's a height, weight, speed specimen. I'm not a fan of his. I know a lot of people have him rated a lot higher than I do. I have him as my 17th rated wide receiver. I've seen him as high as 9, 8 on some people's big board of wide receivers. I'm not as high on Gabriel Davis out of UCF. He's like a Odell Beckham, a poor man's Odell Beckham is what they try to call him at 6'2", 216. I don't see it. I only see the hair, but he's a one-trick pony to me. I don't see a lot of substance with him. I have him pegged as a fourth-round receiver right now. He'll be around. Brian Edwards is another guy. Quintez Cephas. All of these guys will be available for the Redskins. So I just threw out a bunch of names that'll be there in the third round. Hell, most of those guys will be there when the Redskins select in the fourth round as well. You don't have to take a receiver in the third round. Redskins have 2 fourth-round selections, one at the beginning, one at the back end of the fourth round. If you are enamored with taking a receiver and you felt like there was another position with greater value that you could get in the third round, and then you want to double back and get a receiver in the fourth round, there'll be some guys available that are very talented. Again, this is a deep wide receiver class of receiver, a deep pool of receivers in this draft. So you don't have to spend a pick on receiver in the third round. I just think there are going to be some leftovers from the second that have no business being there. And when you look up, you say, man, this is some really good talent. I don't know if we can pass this up. And I think the Redskins may feel obligated to take a receiver in the third round. But if they don't, there'll still be talented guys in the fourth round as well. So thank you for the super chat, Barry Williams. Got another super chat from this one from #Hamdale. Thank you for the super chat, #Hamdale, who writes, the Louis T Network has become my go-to source for everything Redskins. Thank you for holding it down, especially during these uncertain times. Hey, man, I'm glad I could be of some use to you and a lot of people out there for that matter. I mean, if I can be a diversion for you, if I can help you in these really uncertain times, as you mentioned, I'm glad that I could be that for you guys. And just like I'm that for you, you guys are that for me as well, because this isn't as enjoyable if you guys aren't viewing and commenting and giving your feedback as well. So it goes both ways, man. I enjoy your company. You enjoy the content. And I think it works, man. And I really appreciate you guys. So thank you for the super chat, #Hamdale. Greatly appreciated. Let's see. Let's go back to the top and get to some of these comments. Let's see. Where were we? We were... let's see. KT the Southern Gent 22 says, what up, Lou? I learned never doubt your judgment, especially after you said Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara on my Saints would be major problems. Who's this year's can't guard Mike? He's a special dude. The guy that I think, and I don't have anyone that I've watched currently that I have and Michael Thomas as a comp to, but Denzel Mims in the second round. Remember, Michael Thomas was a second round pick. Denzel Mims, I think, will ultimately end up being a first round pick. Someone could fall in love with the height, weight, speed specimen that he is and take him in the first. I have him as a late first grade, but I ultimately have him late first, early second, and I think he ultimately becomes a second round pick. He could be the next can't guard Mike. Chase Claypool is another candidate, although I don't think Chase Claypool is as demonstrative, as physical, even though he's a big body receiver, as a Michael Thomas. He's much faster than Michael Thomas, but that doesn't matter. Another guy that I've talked about, and I keep talking about this guy, and I know you're like, all right, come on for this dude, but Isaiah Hodgins out of Oregon State, man. I really like that dude. There's something about him, his hands, he's smooth. There's something about Isaiah Hodgins that I think that guy could be really good in this league. So that's another guy that I would throw out there as someone that could be a can't guard Mike. And definitely Antonio Gandy Golden is someone that has that kind of similar frame. Now, he's much bigger at 6'4" than Mike, who's about 6'2", 6'3", but still an imposing figure, strong hands, catching traffic, go up, get the football. All of the things we've seen Michael Thomas do in the league, I think Antonio Gandy Golden can do them as well. So there's that. All right, let's get back to the comment section. I got a call coming in, so I'm going to go ahead and take that. You're on live with your man, Louis T. Who am I speaking with?
What up, Lou? This KT. I guess persistence trying to pay off. I've been calling you 12 times in a row.
Hey, glad you finally got through, man.
Hey, I'm going to ask a question. I know not to doubt your judgment because I've been apologizing for years about Michael Thomas when he went to the Saints and I didn't see it. But am I the only one missing the boat on Chase Claypool? Because I've been listening to local analysts out here in Baton Rouge making him seem like he's the next Megatron, but when I look at old boy, I see Dorial Green Beckham. What about you?
Oh man, no, I wouldn't do him like that. But he is definitely not the next Megatron. Absolutely not. I'm gonna give you my comp that I have for him. Let me get to my Chase Claypool breakdown.
I was just gonna say this without cutting you off.
I took some low.
I trust your judgment, but I done seen this movie on USC quarterbacks and wide receivers same with Notre Dame.
Yeah.
The last good Notre Dame wide receiver I saw, and no disrespect to Golden Tate, was Tim Brown.
Oh, come on. Don't go that far back, man. Stop. You just said the guy that was the last good Notre Dame wide receiver.
Golden Tate been all right. Tim Brown was a dog. We can both agree to that.
Yeah, no. Come on. Don't disrespect Golden Tate like that. We haven't had many. All right, we don't have many of those guys in the league. But come on, don't do my man like that. Golly.
Look, I'm a Florida State fan. I'm born and raised in Baton Rouge. I got love for certain Golden Domers, Justin Tuck, Tim Brown, Tony Rice, Rocket Ishmael, but I hadn't seen that guy at wide receiver.
I get it.
8 has been close.
I get it, man. I took the low-hanging fruit because in the Notre Dame community, we like to compare other Notre Dame Fighting Irish, Golden Domers with one another. So I took the low-hanging fruit of Miles Boykin, who was drafted last year by the Baltimore Ravens, as my comp. Similar size, same exact 40 time, 4.42. They take huge steps, similar strides. I think that Chase Claypool, I think he has a little bit more body control than Miles Boykin does, but I don't see Dorial Green Beckham. That's a little harsh, but he's definitely not Megatron. I can assure you of that. So I
all right, Louis,
definitely.
I appreciate it. I trust your judgment, especially after I had to eat my words on Michael Thomas. So I appreciate it, bro. Hopefully you're in good spirits and good health and you enjoy the rest of your night.
Hey, likewise, man. Appreciate you. All right. That was a good laugh. Dorial Green Beckham. Ouch. Let's see. So I got one from DeMarco Williams. He says, been a while, decided to come and chop it with you. I got a theory. I think the Redskins see Kyle Allen as a starting quarterback because I think they see something in him. I don't think that's the case. I really don't. I don't think they see him as the starter. Now, he could ultimately start. I don't think they went and traded for him with the intentions of him being their starting quarterback. I think they went and got him to be the backup behind Dwayne Haskins. But, with this offseason being as uncertain as it is and potentially being abbreviated, he may ultimately be the starter. We'll see what happens. Got a call. Going to go ahead and take it. You're on live with your man, Louis T. Who am I speaking with?
What's up, Louis?
What's going on? Turn your monitor down.
Man, what's up, man? What's up, man? It's your boy Chuck from Fayetteville, North Carolina, man. Representing, man.
What's going on? Turn your monitor down, Chuck. I can hear it in the background.
My bad, bro.
You good?
My bad, bro. But yeah, man, I want to ask a question, man. Is there any ACC wide receivers that you're interested in, man? Because North Carolina got a good few that's upcoming, man. The whole ACC. Is there any ACC wide receivers that you see that got potential?
Outside of T. Higgins, I don't think I have anybody in my top 20. I'll run through real quick. But off the top of my dome, I'm pretty sure T. Higgins is the lone ACC wide receiver in the mix. It's really dark, spooky times in the ACC right now, man. It's not a lot of talent out there right now, man. So, I lied. Nope, that's SEC, man. Yep, that's it, brother. it's T. Higgins, man. That's it right now. I mean, if it's not coming out of Clemson, you might every now and again get a UVA guy or a Miami dude, but Florida State's on hard times right now. They trying to pick the pieces up of their program, and it's just rough in the ACC right now, man. Like,
right. Well, I'm gonna speak on. I'm futuristic because I'm a Tar Heel fan. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But if you go look at the Tar Heel stats this season, I don't think they're coming out this year, but they did have 2,000-yard receivers. Mm-hmm. You feel me? But But I think they juniors. I don't think they coming out because the quarterback we have is a freshman.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, hey, look out for them Tar Heels, man. That's why I'm calling Redskin Nation. Be looking at them Tar Heels, man.
If they keep making noise, hey, if you good, they will find you, man. We'll
No
definitely
doubt.
find them.
But, I'm just calling in because I'm a big-time Redskin fan, man. I don't know if we really need a wide receiver or not, man, because I like the receiver core we got, bro.
We definitely need to add at least one for sure.
You think so?
I do.
I
really
think we
do.
need a tight end more than wide receiver, man.
That's a fact. But you need both. It's not one or the other. We need tight end more than we need receiver. But
Right.
That doesn't mean you still don't need a wide receiver as well. So
what about Cam Sims, man?
What about
They're not
him?
even gonna let him come up and he done passed development, man. He ready to hit the field to me.
Well, again, we're not there every day in practice. There's a reason why this man hasn't been able to get on the field consistently. Whatever reason, I can't tell you what it is, but they never felt comfortable putting him on the field consistently, and they've had ample opportunities. We've had injuries, and somehow, some way, this man has not been able to
interrupt me myself. I bet him a lot of that on Jay Gruden, not letting guys get opportunities because he was trying to keep a job, so he wanted to play veterans. So he didn't want to play the young guys because he was trying to keep his job. I understand him, and I feel him, but, man, a lot of them boys got potential. Cam got potential, man.
Well, we'll see. You one of those Cam Sims fans. I don't know if he's going to make it in Washington. He may make it somewhere, but it may not be in Washington. We'll see, though. But, hey, Chuck, I appreciate you, bro.
Yeah, appreciate the call, man.
Take care. All right. Let's see what we got. Make sure we got no more super chats. And I see a super chat, so I'm going to read that one. This super chat is from Austin Tucker. Thank you for the super chat, Austin Tucker. Greatly appreciate it. My man Austin Tucker writes, what up, Lou? Who and where do the Texans draft at wide receiver? They are definitely in the market for a wide receiver. They have multiple seconds. I don't know. They don't have a first. They traded that away, if I'm not mistaken, so to the Dolphins. So they've got multiple seconds, though, theirs and Arizona's. They're going to take a receiver at some point. I'd like to think it's going to be in the second round. They desperately need to fill that void that was left by Nuke, because your second best wide receiver is only good for 7 to 8 games a season, 10 at best. But Will Fuller's going to miss at least 4, probably more like 6 games with a hamstring or calf strain or an ankle. He's going to miss some games with some kind of soft tissue injury. So Nuke was always available. You say what you want about, Nuke. He was always available, and you got to replace that. I don't know if you can with a rookie, but you're damn sure going to try. And there are going to be some guys available. That Arizona Cardinals second round pick is going to become probably a target for a guy like Denzel Mims if he's available. If a T. Higgins somehow miraculously is still on the board, he makes a ton of sense there. I don't think you look for a smaller guy, though. If I'm the Texans, I'm not looking at a KJ Hamler or Jalen Trager or none of those guys at that point of the draft. I want a bigger, physical-bodied receiver, someone that I think is going to stay healthy. The opposite of Will Fuller. Even though Fuller can run like the wind, I want a guy that I think is going to be on the field for 16 games. And so if I'm the Houston Texans, there are going to be a number of receivers in that pocket for you potentially. Like I said, Mims could be there. I won't say should. Higgins probably won't, but cross your fingers and hope that he is. Maybe you package up a couple of those, a couple of picks. Not necessarily your second rounder, but maybe you take your first second rounder and a fourth, and you use that to move up a few spots if you find a receiver there that you got to have. Look, Bill O'Brien has done more insane things than that. So Chase Claypool is another guy. Definitely will be there by 40. If I had to take a stab at it, he'll be there as well. Brandon Ayuk is another guy that could potentially be a target there. So these are all names that I think are second round worthy, that'll be there at 40. Maybe you see another position that you desperately need to snatch up at 40 and decide with that second round pick, your second round pick, that's in like the 50s, 58 or somewhere around there. You decide you want a wide receiver. A couple of those names will still be there, like a Claypool might still be on the board at that time. That's when you start getting into the back end. And again, there's some other names there. Maybe you love Gabrielle Davis. I don't. But you see a big-bodied receiver with some speed, with some size, and maybe you say that's the guy that can come in and replace DeAndre Hopkins. I don't know. I don't know what your flavor is, but I can tell you this. You're going to draft a receiver in the second round. The Texans are going to take a receiver in the second round. I feel confident in saying that. Thank you for the super chat, Austin Tucker. Got another super chat. This one from Just Andre. Thank you for the super chat, Just Andre. Greatly appreciate it. My man Just Andre writes, if the Skins get Chase Young and AGG, how would you feel? I would feel euphoric. I would feel like the Redskins just stole. I would feel like the Redskins won the draft. And like last year, I think most Redskins fans felt like the Redskins won the first round of the draft. We felt really good. We got a quarterback. I wasn't in love with the quarterback that we selected, but I was on board. All right, we took him. I said he's a part of the family. I opened my arms wide and I welcomed him. And but the doubling back and getting Montez Sweat, a guy that we thought had top 10 talent or at least a skill set that could have netted him a top 10 pick. I wasn't necessarily on board with him being a top 10 talent like most people. But I thought that that was a steal to get him at 24. And so we felt great about our first round, you know? And I would have a similar feeling. To get Chase Young, just Chase Young alone would have me on cloud nine. And then to turn around and tell me that we were able to land AGG, I'd be beside myself. Because now I would look at the Redskins and say, we're building the nucleus of what is to become a bully if we were to get those types of players and add them to the roster. So we'll see what the Redskins decide to do. We'll see how the board falls. The Redskins may not even be interested in AGG. You know how we are as fans. We think we know what's best. They've had guys watching these players for months upon months, years upon years. And so they're going to rely on their scouting department probably more so this year than ever before because of the inability to have these guys come to your facility, to work them out, to have these players come. You know, you usually get 30 player visits to your facility. All of those have been canceled. You don't get these physicals. You don't get the one-on-one time on the whiteboard, or you don't get to talk to these guys to see how much they love football. You're going to have to rely heavily on your area scouts this year. And so I could be madly in love with AGG's game, and they could be like, nah, we good. We see other guys that we think are a better fit for our football team. So we shall see. But thank you for the super chat, Just Andre. Back up to the top, and we'll snatch up a couple of comments. Reese says, do you think Thaddeus Moss can make an impact in the league? We'll talk tight ends next week. But I think he can have an impact as a pass catcher. I keep hearing people tell me how much this guy loves blocking. Well, I can't tell. Okay, he didn't get many opportunities to do it at LSU, so I need to see it to believe it. Tristan and I so LT. He said he missed the first hour. We already took that comment from my man MT. And let's see. Will Ford says, where do you have Devon Duvernay ranked? He's outside of my top 20. The small speedster slot receiver from the Longhorns is a guy that has some talent, no doubt, but I think he pales in comparison to a lot of these guys in this draft. I think he isn't as good as Rager or KJ Hamler. Definitely nowhere near the stratosphere of a Henry Ruggs III. So I think when you start looking at slot receivers, he's probably, and I'd even categorize Justin Jefferson as a big slot. You know, there are a couple of guys in this draft that did a lot of their damage in the slot, Justin Jefferson being one of them. So I think Devon Duvernay is strictly a slot, purely a slot, nothing more, nothing less. And I think you can go, 6, 7, maybe even 8 guys deep before you get to a Devon Duvernay at the receiver position. So I don't have him anywhere near my top 20. I think he's closer to 30 than he is 20 on my list of wide receivers. Let's see. Niners fan says, "What up, Lou? I was watching Chris Sims today, and he had Jerry Judy not ranked in the top 5. Thoughts?" Look, a lot of people are going to, when people do things like that, usually they do it for effect. Now, Chris Sims usually has a lot of substance, and when he does things like that, there may be some rationale behind it, and there may be some things he doesn't like about his game. There's some things about his game that I don't like. I'll give you some of the negatives I have on him. Blocking is optional for him. I usually don't kill receivers for that, but he's not a guy that really cares to block. If he has to, he may try to lay hands, but for the most part, he's good. He'll pass. He's got a very wiry frame, and he saw little to no press coverage. I'd like to think that if some corners come up in his face, delete the airspace, lay hands on him, I think he could struggle with press release, because I don't see a guy that has the kind of frame that's going to be conducive to getting off the line of scrimmage. Now, he's got the quickness, but he's going to have to work on his technique to get off the line of scrimmage. And I think some guys are going to come up and challenge him and force him to show that he can beat press coverage and that he can make them pay for coming up and being aggressive at the line of scrimmage. And then there are the concentration drops. And I mentioned, and that's my biggest issue, are the concentration drops. As I've mentioned, the elite receivers in this league don't drop the football. Larry Fitzgerald doesn't drop the football. I know he's past his prime, but he didn't drop the ball. DeAndre Hopkins, Michael Thomas, these guys don't drop the football. That's how you end up with over 100 catches, because you don't drop the rock. All right, and so Julio rarely drops the football. All right, he may drop it a little bit, but you're not going to have many drops. So that's something that's concerning, but no way is he out of the top 5. That's ridiculous, utterly ridiculous. And if I didn't know better, I would say that's strictly for clicks and trying to be different. And you get people trying to be different this time of the year. If it's not, look, don't try to reinvent the wheel. Jerry Judy is definitely a top 3 receiver. He may not be 1, he may not be your 2. He's no further than 3 in this draft. To tell me that he's not in your top 5, you just want to be different. That's what I see that as. Let's see. Tyler Rycroft asked about running backs that could be good receivers out of the backfield. Check my running back video. I did a live video on running backs a couple of weeks ago, I believe. Break out the 20 grand. How do you know I drink 20 grand? How do you know that? Anyway. Got another super chat. This one from Kenny Davis. Thank you for the super chat, Kenny Davis. Greatly appreciated, Kenny Davis. Kenny Davis writes, "Why did we waste a year with Jay Gruden when he had his chance?" Look, man, they didn't want to go away from Gruden. I told you the year after the 2018 season, Jay Gruden should have been fired. Bruce Allen should have been fired. That's no secret. Most Redskins fans felt that way. They decided to retain both of those guys. It turned out to be a train wreck, and it resulted in a 3-13 season. That could have been avoided had they just went and hired a new coach and changed the culture a year ago. But if they would have done that, there would be no Ron Rivera, and there would be no hope. And maybe the new coach would have come in and been outstanding, and we're not having this conversation. But more likely than not, you probably wouldn't have gotten a guy the caliber of a Ron Rivera because of the state of the Redskins at that time. Bruce Allen would have probably still been employed, and you wouldn't have gotten a good guy. So, it is what it is. It was done with Jay Gruden potentially winning in mind. But, if you fire Jay Gruden, you're probably going to have to fire Bruce Allen. And Dan Snyder wasn't ready to do that yet. So it is what it is. We've moved on. Ron Rivera's the coach, and Ron we trust. That's what we're going with now. So thank you for the super chat there. Got another super chat. This one from Martin Matthews. Double up. From my man Martin Matthews. Thank you for the super chat, and thank you for doubling up, Double M. He says, hey, Louie, let's say that the Skins get a second-round pick for Trent. Do you think the Skins will spend it on a wide receiver or a cornerback? Interesting enough. Depends on where the second-round pick is. Because I think, and I contend, that you're going to see a run on corners early in the second round. I think you're only going to see 2 corners, possibly 3, go in the first round. But I think you're only going to see Jeff Okudah and C.J. Henderson go in the first round. And I think after that, you may get a Tristan Fulton or someone like that sneak into the back end of the first round at the cornerback position. I like Jalen Johnson out of Utah as well. But you could get one of those guys sneak in the back end of the first round or what may have you. But and you know what too, in Bouye or however I'll figure out how to say his damn name. But the corner out of Auburn, I really like him too. So he's another guy that I think he's sneaking up draft boards. Is Joey I, and wouldn't shock me in the least if he ends up being a first round pick. But I think you're gonna see Joey I, Jalen Johnson, Christian Fulton, all of those guys. I'm not a huge fan of Stephon Diggs' brother, but some people are. I'm not, but I think you're going to see a run on corners at the top of the second round. And I think you're going to see like 4 or 5 of them go in the first 15 to 20 picks in the second round. So it all depends on where the Redskins' second round pick, if they were to net one for Trent Williams, where it is. If it's early in the second round, maybe they take a cornerback. If it's late in the second round and all the guys that they like at the cornerback position are gone, maybe it's a receiver. I don't know. Maybe it's a tight end. Maybe that puts them in the sweet spot for a tight end that they really like. Maybe they really like one of the tight ends. And I think there will not be a first-round tight end this year. I feel adamant about that. And so I think you'll get a semi-run on tight ends. I think you'll only see 2 or 3 go in the second round. But maybe they like one of the tight ends. And they get a chance to take one of the tight ends off the board that they like in the second round. That may not be there at the top of the third. Who's to say? Anyhow, I digress. Thank you for the super chat, Martin Matthews. Vincent Coe, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciated. Vincent Coe writes, I'm late to the party, Lou, but thoughts on DPJ. DPJ. Who are we talking about? Who is that? Am I missing something? Let me go through. Help me out. Type his name in the comment section so I can see it. Because I have no idea who DPJ is. And I might just be being slow and being a blind right now, but who's DPJ? I'm still waiting on that from you, Vincent Coe. Donovan Peoples-Jones. That's why I didn't know who he is, because it's Donovan Peoples-Jones. Not high on him, man, at all. The Michigan product. This is a guy that was heavily recruited out of high school. If I'm not mistaken, he was a 5-star recruit. Goes to Michigan. And you can blame the quarterbacks if you like. You can blame a lot of the things on the pieces around him if you like. But let's just face it. Donovan Peoples-Jones is a disappointing talent. He's a guy that I don't think will ever quite reach the level of his talent. He's to me, he's like a monotone. He's a monotone route runner. He plays at one speed. It's not very fast. Even though he timed fast, he doesn't play at a 4.48. I think is what he ran at the combine, or 4.47 or whatever it was. He doesn't play at that speed. All right. I'm just not a huge fan of his game. Inconsistent route runner. He shows flashes. He tantalizes you with his talent, but then, you're waiting for him. This is a guy that never had big production at Michigan. And when you watch him, you see a guy that has everything you're looking for, and you're just waiting for him to pop, but he never does. And there are drops. Like I said, there's sluggish route running. He doesn't play at that speed that he timed at. I'm just not a Donovan Peoples-Jones fan. I'm not. And I've got a 4th round grade on him, a late 4th, more towards the 5th. And I think he ultimately ends up being a 5th round pick. I'm not a Donovan Peoples-Jones guy, but all it takes is one. He could go as early as the 3rd, as late as the 6th. I think he ultimately ends up being a 5th round pick, but not a Donovan Peoples-Jones fan. I'm not. I'm really not. So thank you for the super chat. It's funny because I'm looking in the comment, and I don't know if everyone is, everyone's having their own sidebar conversations. And I think I saw somebody say, no, he's going in a second. The hell he is. I'd bet a lot right now to tell you that Donovan Peoples-Jones is not going in the 2nd round. Now, again, what I value and what someone else values is 2 different things, and he could come off the board. I think there's no way he comes off the board sooner than the 3rd round. There are too many. If this were a different draft, maybe he could come off the board in the 2nd round. This draft in particular, with all the talent at receiver, there is no way that you're going to take Donovan Peoples-Jones over all of these receivers with all of this talent in this particular draft. Hell, I'd take the Lipscomb kid out of Vandy before I would even think about taking Donovan Peoples-Jones. And I actually think Lipscomb has some talent out of Vandy. So I'm good on Donovan Peoples-Jones. Anyhow, Just Andre says, thank you for the super chat once again, Vincent Coe. Thoughts on John Hightower? Just Andre writes, thank you for the super chat, Just Andre. John Hightower, solid. Again, another one of these guys that will be around mid to late portion of the draft. It depends on how many of these receivers come off the board. I think you could see 5 or 6 in the 1st round. I think you could see another 5 or 6 in the 2nd round. And then I think you'll start to see it kind of thin out a bit. And I think it might pick back up in the 4th and 5th round or so. I think he's a guy that will be in that 5th, 6th round range. Again, much like Donovan Peoples-Jones, not really high on John Hightower. I'm not. So there's just too many talented receivers in this draft And one of these guys that I'm not high on is going to turn out to be a pretty good wide receiver. Like, not every one of these 1st and 2nd round guys are going to pan out. And not every one of these 4th, 5th round guys are going to turn out to be 4th, 5th round guys that are just, dime a dozen wide receiver that ends up playing special teams and is out of the league in, 3-4 years and playing in the XFL or something. That's not going to be the case for all of these guys. For some of them, they're going to rise, and they're going to end up being really good receivers in this league. But in a draft that's this deep, there are 4th round grade receivers that in other drafts would be 2nd round grade receivers. But because this draft is so deep, you're going to see guys get pushed back. And again, the receiver position isn't the only good position in this draft. There are other talented positions in this draft that are going to garner attention as well. So trust and believe. Like, it's funny because we sit here and we talk about this guy's going to go in the 2nd. Like, I think Antonio Gandy-Golden is going to go in the 2nd. Well, guess what? He probably will go in the 3rd round, like my man Gregory Lightbody said earlier in the show. Oh, no, he'll be around for the Redskins in the 3rd round if they want him. And, I sat here last year and I thought Kelvin Harmon is going to be a 2nd or a 3rd round pick. I sat here and adamantly said that. The guy didn't get taken to the 6th round. They're going to be guys that I think are really good quality football players that are going to be sitting there in the 5th, 6th round. It happens every year, and in a draft this deep, there are going to be some players that get overlooked. You know, like a team is saying, hey, that's a good quality wide receiver, but guess what? We see an even better linebacker right here, so we're going to take that. Or we see a better cornerback, so we're going to take him. Or, man, this safety won't be around. If we pass him up, we can get another receiver, but this safety won't be here, so we got to take him here. So, and I think a guy like John Hightower kind of fits in that, you know, realm. Solid receiver would probably be a lot higher in a different year where there are less prospects that you're excited about, that you're salivating over. But in this particular draft, where I could probably run off 25, I think, you know, I have John Hightower somewhere in that 28 to 32 range. I'd have to go deep in my notes for him. I've just got my first 20 in front of me. But in a different draft, that's a guy that would probably be somewhere in the 18 to 22 range. You know, maybe even 15 somewhere in there. In this draft, he's not even on the radar. So, sorry if I got a little long-winded on you. But thank you for the super chat nonetheless. Farrah Cody writes, you think the Redskins can get Jefferson in the 3rd round? If you're talking about the same Jefferson that I'm talking about, that I think you're talking about, which is Justin Jefferson out of LSU, the answer is no. Emphatically no. First and foremost, thank you for the super chat, Farrah Cody. Greatly appreciate that, Farrah. But there is no way Justin Jefferson is around in the 3rd round. Hell, I don't even think he'll be around in the 2nd round, okay? I think he comes off the board in the 1st round, all right? But, again, he's not the greatest athlete in the world, is Justin Jefferson. He's not going to knock your socks off from an athleticism standpoint. And so if people are blinded and they forget about the 111 catches and all of the production he had, if people fall asleep behind the wheel and just want to see raw athleticism, he'll get pushed down. They'll take other guys before him. They'll take Denzel Mims or T. Higgins before him because those are height, weight, speed guys. And T. Higgins isn't a blazer, but he was running past guys in the ACC, and I know that's not saying much. When you're running past North Carolina corners and Boston College corners and NC State corners, not saying much. I get it. I understand it. He torched Virginia. Woo! It's Virginia. Like, I understand. I get it. But he's a big guy. He offers you a little something different than a Justin Jefferson does, who is just steady Eddie, consistent as the day is long. I like Justin Jefferson. I think he's a playmaker. I think he's a difference maker. I think he comes off the board in the 1st round. But, again, we will see. So, no, Justin Jefferson will not be available. I can assure you of that in the 3rd round for the Redskins to select. Got another super chat. This one from John Perez, my man JP. Thank you for the super chat. JP writes, if we can land both Ohio State receivers, KJ Hill and Benjamin Victor, in the 3rd and 4th round, I would really be happy, honestly. I'm not a big fan of either one of those guys. Now, KJ Hill is a technician when it comes to running routes. And there's a place in the league for him. I don't want one of those guys on the roster next to Terry McLaurin. I want some size, okay? That's what I feel like the Redskins are lacking right now. And again, maybe they view Kelvin Harmon as all the size we need. Maybe they view Cam Sims as a legitimate threat at wide receiver, and he's plenty big at 6'5", okay? And so maybe the whole big wide receiver narrative is being overdone by me and overblown, and maybe they are looking for a technician. And if that is in fact the guy, and they love Terry McLaurin, and if Terry's putting in a good word and saying, look, if you think I'm a consummate professional, where do you get a load of KJ Hill? Great. If they take him, cool. I'll be on board, but I'm not a KJ Hill fan. He doesn't have enough attributes for me. He's solid. You know who he is to me? He's Jericho Cotchery. I don't want to draft Jericho Cotchery in the 3rd round. I'm sorry, I don't. I'm good. I'll pass. Thanks, but no thanks. And Jericho Cotchery was a really good NFL receiver for many years. I'm good. Thanks. I'll pass. This draft has too many guys that can have, to me, this draft has too many guys with through the roof potential where the ceiling is the sky. All right. That I don't want a guy with a glass ceiling like KJ Hill. I'm sorry. KJ Hill, there's only so much you can do with a KJ Hill. All right. So that's that. Anyway, and Victor Benjamin, I don't trust him. He's got 2 first names. I think I talked about him last night on the show. Someone brought him up. Big guy, long, really big catch radius. Solid receiver, man. Really solid. But there's so many other guys in this draft that I think are better. That guy I think can do more. So I feel like I'm settling for Victor Benjamin. Now, again, if the Redskins feel like there's better value at tight end and safety and corner and all these other positions, and then they say, we'll take a flyer on somebody in the 6th round, which we currently don't have a 6th round pick, but that could change. But let's just say in the 5th round, they've done a bunch of damage. Chase Young in the 1st, and they took a tight end in the 3rd, and they got a corner, and then they turned around and they got a linebacker in the with their other 4th round pick, or safety, and then they say, you know what, damn, we didn't even touch receiver. Let's grab a guy, and that guy was Victor Benjamin in the 5th. Cool. I'm not gonna be thrilled, but I'll give it a thumbs up. I'm not gonna be disappointed by it. So there's that. But thank you for the super chat, JP. 316 CTW. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate your contribution. Thank you so much. 316 CTW, who writes, "What's up, Lou? Just showing some love. I'm not sure if you spoke on it already, but with our 3rd or 4th round pick, who do you see us realistically getting at wide receiver? And does that receiver take over Kelvin Harmon's spot and start?" If the Redskins take a 3rd round receiver, I think they take him with every intention of him starting. If they take a 4th round receiver, I don't necessarily know if that's the case or not. I think because the Redskins are going to view their 3rd round pick, because currently they don't have a 2nd. So they're going to view their 3rd round pick as essentially a 2nd round pick. All right. They're going to view that pick as a guy that they think is a immediate starter. That's how they're going to treat that pick, because it's so early in the 3rd round and they don't have a 2nd round pick. So that pick essentially is their 2nd round pick, and they're going to really, I think, put a lot of emphasis on that selection. So if that 3rd round pick is a wide receiver, I think that's a guy they're drafting to start right away. Now, again, will that guy come in, hit the ground running? Is Scott Turner's system easy to pick up? With no offseason, no OTAs, no minis, it's hard for a guy to come in and just hit the ground running. So I'd likely say no, that whoever is that receiver is going to start, because there are going to be no offseason workouts for this guy to get acclimated to the system. But I think in a normal offseason, yes, they would view that guy as someone that could come in and start right away. Kelvin Harmon, for all intents and purposes right now, is your number 2, but I don't know if they view him as a true number 2 right now or not. And I'm not down on Kelvin Harmon. I don't want you guys to confuse me wanting a receiver for being down on Kelvin Harmon, because I'm not down on Kelvin Harmon. I just believe the Redskins can upgrade. And as Ron Rivera said himself, there's nothing wrong with making your strength stronger. And I'm not saying receiver is actually a strength of this football team, but it's certainly not the biggest weakness. I think you could run through a list of other positions that the Redskins need help at, including left tackle, who we have not talked about at all tonight, which this is a wide receiver program. But when I talk about needs and things the Redskins knocked down, I think left tackle probably heads that list of players that the Redskins really need to take a serious look at. But I think if they get a 3rd round receiver, they would look at that guy as a starter. A 4th round receiver, they may view him a little bit differently. But and I have talked about receivers that will be available in the 3rd, 4th round already. So I'd ask you to double back into the video. But I can run through your contribution was big enough to the point where I think I can run through all of the guys in that pocket where the Redskins will be selecting that I believe. As my man Gregory Lightbody alluded to earlier, Antonio Gandy Golden, who I'm a huge fan of, could be available in the third round. I personally don't think he will. I don't think Chase Claypool will. But those are guys that could be available in the third round. So keep them kind of on the outskirts of the third round. I think they're more second rounders, but those guys could be available. They're fringy for me. But these are the guys that I expect fully to be in the third round and later. Van Jefferson out of Florida, Michael Pittman Jr. out of USC, Tyler Johnson out of Minnesota, easily could be a second round pick. I think he's a third. Isaiah Hodgins, I've talked about him a bunch tonight. Really love his game out of Oregon State. He's my sleeper pick at wide receiver. Not a lot of people are talking about him. I think he's got the second best set of hands in the draft behind CeeDee Lamb's. I think he's got a chance to be really good in this league. KJ Hamler out of Penn State, Gabrielle Davis, Brian Edwards out of South Carolina. These are all guys that are going to be around in the third, possibly fourth round as well. So Redskins will have their pick of the litter of a lot of receivers that will be available. And as I've said, players are going to get pushed back. It's one of those types of drafts where 3, possibly 4 guys at the quarterback position could go in the first round. We're going to see 3 in the top 10. I'm almost certain of that. And if that's in fact the case, like we saw a couple of years back, and I always reference this because he had no business going out of the top 10. Marshawn Lattimore is going to end up outside of the top 10. You know, remember Marshawn Lattimore that year had no business being outside of the top 10, but because some of the other positions got pushed up, he got pushed out, and the Saints were the benefactor of that. You're going to see some of that kind of stuff take place in this draft, and I think you're going to see, you know, some of these receivers, because there are so many of them, some of those guys are going to get pushed back, and that's why Antonio Gandy Golden could potentially be around in the third round, as Gregory Lightbody said earlier. So we'll see what happens, but I think the Redskins are definitely going to add more competition to the receiver position, and it could be as early as the third round. So all right. So I think that's going to do it. Appreciate you guys chopping it up with me. That was fun. That I enjoyed that more so than any of my other live Draft 101 series videos. And probably because I'm a big receiver guy. So I'm going to enjoy it more. And you guys made it fun. And so I appreciate you guys chopping it up with me about the receiver position. Looking forward to breaking down tight ends, defensive and offensive line next week. So we'll dive knee deep into that as we get closer to the draft. Looking forward to doing that with you guys. As always, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the Louis T Network if you haven't already done so. Make sure you check out the podcast. Man, great episode of the podcast last week. New episode of the podcast coming shortly, so stay tuned for that. But I talked about running cover 3 versus Corona on the podcast last week, as well as I broke down free agency and all of its splendor. So if you haven't had a chance already, do yourself a favor, check out the Louis T Network podcast. And again, brand new episode coming your way here shortly. So be on the lookout for that as well. If it's not your man T, it's not the best NFL coverage. It could be. Looking forward to breaking down the rest of these positions, and we'll continue to knock them down one by one. Next week, we're gonna knock down 3 because we gotta be a little bit more hasty now. We gotta get on our horse and giddy up as we're getting really close. So tight ends, defensive and offensive line next week. Looking forward to chopping it up with you guys. Then, in the meantime, you guys take care. Stay safe. Take all precautionary measures necessary. Look, if you got to wear a mask, you got to wear a mask. But do what you need to do to keep yourself and your family safe. With that being said, I'm your man, Louis T. You guys have a good one. God bless and good night. And I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.
Louis T Network.